on this topic. Let's have a look. We do have colleagues from our Unicorn University, and the presentation that is called Digital Education is the Key to Success. Mrs. Jana Adamová and Mr. Jakub Haláček will deliver, and be sure to raise questions. Thank you for the floor. We divided our presentation into two parts. Jana will describe the whole story, what results can be brought by education, digital education. And I must say that preceding blocks were very inspirational, speaking about changes ahead of us, changing about challenges. And in order for companies being able to cope with the challenges, to reach success, of course, education is important, education of their manpower. So system, methodology, how to deliver education, this is important, and I hope we will be able to convince you that we have good results. After Jana shows you where we've got to, I will show you a short demo, how it can look like from the point of view of a colleague of mine who gets education. How do we support our people to get education? How do we measure the results, and so on and so forth? Jana, the floor is yours.
That is essential for any successful company: education. Because we consider education as one of the key priorities, and we know that it's beneficial for the success of the company and each of us, I want to share with you our case study. In other words, how we have dealt with the challenges of digital education and, more importantly, what it has brought us. My name is Jana Adamová. I am responsible for the education process within the company, and I am in charge of the Unicorn Top Gun Academy unit, whose mission is to systematically and continuously educate all our coworkers. How else to start than by asking, why do we need digital education? That seems to be a simple question because we are a digital company. But above all, we are a company that is constantly growing. We have over 2,000 co-workers from different places, speaking different languages, working on hundreds of projects and products. This brings us to the first challenge that needs to be met. Because if you have thousands of co-workers, education is a big investment, and you have to find a way to reduce the risk of wasting money on a non-effective learning process. But not just the number of co-workers has to be dealt with, but also their work focus. Learning is a continuous process because everything is still evolving, especially technologies. We can talk about hundreds of roles and thousands of topics that need to be taught. We have therefore decided to focus our efforts on increasing the efficiency of education by using the added value of digital learning. But for any process to be successful, it needs to be properly managed. Regarding education, it's mainly about setting processes for producing training, managing the training flow, and recording results that we could work with information. We have established a unit for this purpose called Unicorn Top Gun Academy, whose mission is the systematic education of our coworkers. In digital learning, our role changed from the event organizer to the guide for coworkers, to show them what, how, and when to learn. This leads to the next step we have to handle: tracking coworker study progress, activity assignments, reminding tasks, and forcing them to fulfill study obligations. To make this all work, it's necessary to focus on three main things. First, for effective self-study, you need quality study materials. Second, you need supporting tools as well. And third, you have to find a way how to verify knowledge effectively. As I already mentioned, the first key requirement for digital learning is study materials. Digital self-study is not just about electronic books, which we of course also have in an interactive form using our UU Bookit application, but we also work with online courses, create educational videos, demos, or learn, for example, through comic stories to convey key ideas to coworkers in a fun way. Study materials are produced in cooperation with Unicorn Publishing, a publishing company focusing on online education. Comprehensive education requires order, and that's impossible without supporting tools and applications for managing processes that can communicate with each other. In the beginning, we talked about hundreds of roles and thousands of topics. Our goal is to have them systematically documented, because to place people effectively, the know-how system is a must. So here comes the UU Know-how Kit application. As far as you know who and what to learn, you need a tool for managing studies and results, UU Study Engine, which covers the execution of training and the recording of study results, including task assignments from different sources. For example, already mentioned online courses in our UU Course Kit application. And finally, with the coming of artificial intelligence, we created the UU Business Chat application, which allows us to extract information from defined know-how sets by interacting with AI with controlled access. And that brings us to our case study and the key milestones that led us to our success. In the autumn of 2016, we started working on the UU Course Kit application, an online educational tool for creating courses. Until 2017, most of our training was primarily on-site, with less than 10% of self-study, and the production of our first online course was a game changer. In 2019, we focused on a strategy to digitalize education, which mainly meant changing the way we teach and creating digital content. 2 years later, we already had a large part of our training portfolio covered with materials that allowed us to combine the form of training as needed. Self-study has its advantages, but on the other hand, it emphasized motivation and self-discipline. We needed to find a way to check whether coworkers had the necessary knowledge. So, we have started to work with digital certification, which tests theoretical know-how in the required areas through a test in our well-known UU Course Kit application. Digital certification became thus a part of a continuous process of learning and improvement that enables us to maintain the system. And finally, we come to the present and the challenge of integrating artificial intelligence into education. To show that it works, let's look at real data. As already mentioned, one of the parts of the process is the ability to track coworkers' study progress. The graph shows the number of studied lessons by our coworkers in the last 2 years, with a huge year-on-year increase. The current average number of lessons studied per day is nearly 1,500, which means that almost every one of us is learning one lesson every day, which is, by the way, a beautiful example of the micro-learning method. However, education is not just about numbers and quantity, but especially about the added value it brings us. Behind these numbers we achieved is the core of our success. We know that our work is by no means over, because learning is a never-ending story. But one thing is for sure, digital learning and knowledge verification work and are beneficial both for the company and each of us. What do you think, Jakub? Am I right?
Tak určitě, Jano, děkujeme.
Well, for sure, Jana, thank you for your input, for your presentation, and what's been presented by you when we saw that we have to manage thousands of students in different locations with different educational targets and plans, each of them, all of that supported by the IT system, and also we have to cope with the view of those who are to be educated themselves. I mean, the number of lessons mastered or managed by day. Let's have a look at one colleague of ours. And what does it mean, studying one lesson per day? I switched over to our digital log book that looks very similar to other books. If I go through different chapters, I open one of them, there is a video explaining the topic, then there is a text, there is description of codes. I can work with it. The video is very important, and video podcasts are added to each material, because many of us accept more easily matters from audiovisual channel than from written material, and people ask for that audiovisual material. So we do produce videos, we supply them to our students, and if I look at the content when speaking about videos, there is always a podcast. This is quite specific, so it would not be very useful for us. But if it is about management, if it is about law, why not to listen to it when you go to work, for instance, or home, back home? And also you can find the transcripts. People in the past didn't understand why they should get transcripts, but it is also a useful tool. And we must sort of feed students with information. And if I switched on to our co-pilot, it doesn't work only with the text part of the book, of the textbook. It also works with transcripts relating to different videos, and it gives us answers if I raise a question. This is an example of our tools we have incorporated. This is a business chat that helps us with my getting knowledge. I may be studying lesson 7, but who knows, I forgot something from some previous lesson. So as soon as I address the pilot, the co-pilot or assistant, my question, the entity works not only with a given document, but with several materials that are of relevance to my question. I will not show it. For instance, what it is about a route. If I create a new application, I get an answer that may be satisfactory or may not be satisfactory, but it is for sure an answer that gets from, let's say, different resources. Sometimes it may come from not highly valuable resources. Sometimes it may be even misleading. So anyhow, it gets me to a page where I can find the answer to my question or a text that is relevant to my questions, and I can easily switch in between different studying materials. I do not have to address my colleagues, where did you find this information? It's all facilitated by this AI assistant. Or if I ask what is UU lamp, and again, it's so helpful that a student gets more quickly relevant sources of information, relevant answers. It is really a way that helps us very much with our educational targets. Let's get back to our educational materials. Rolling down the page, I will promise to you to look at a case 1 lesson per day. So review what you learned, but I also should know whether I did grasp the topic properly, that I understand the matter, because that's the typical process of education. I mean, I first study and then I must somehow be verified whether I understood, whether I learned properly. So this is a testing stage, not identical to what we experience in schools, a different one, but what are the right answers? If I do not answer properly, if my answer is not correct, I get an additional explanation why another solution was the right answer. So again, I do not have to wait for somebody else to verify my knowledge, to test me, and to give me additional explanations. So it's all much more facilitated, much more faster. And here I was lucky, I can combine it, link it together. You can notice that types of questions differ in order to motivate students to think about, also to break a certain monotony of the materials, and also to make it all faster, this educational process. So with this practical case, I finished one lesson. Before that, I watched a video, and that means I studied one block. This is not the end of everything yet, because we have these tools for self-study. In addition, however, we need to be able to verify the knowledge obtained, and it should be somehow proven. So I have a certification exam here prepared. Everything you have seen so far is online. You can study anytime. You have some time plan, and it's up to you whether you study in the evening or in the morning. But then we want to have some on-site form where we verify whether the employee or the colleague understood everything. So let me show you what it looks like. This is the certification test start or landing page, and you see what it looks like. It's like testing at school this time, and I have 30 minutes for it. You see duration. And then I can actually have it available in the next 58 minutes. And if I open it, then it's the start of the test. And you see, I can switch between different questions. And the user or the student, the colleague, will get questions that he had not seen yet. And this is the process at stages. First, this is the learning stage, and then this is the verification stage where we test him or her whether he understood everything. And then we can switch to another stage of the working or educational process. Thank you, and have a good day. Thank you for your inspiring presentation, and I'm sure we will have some questions. Let me ask you, it looks like this produces a lot of data, and in schools or universities, it is a trend to have a learning development system. We need to monitor the students so that we know when they actually need to be motivated or where they are motivated, and now we have to... is it this system that can be used for it? Thank you for this really nice question. And we know that in the 21st century, the blood of the economy is data. And nowadays, we work with data in order to identify those who need more support, who have problem or difficulty understanding the subject, and then we can actually send them more materials, we can give them more resources. And I also hear that you might be asking about the data which is through AI tools used for various purposes. You can then offer specific subject to students. So if we know that somebody is very good at some area, then we can just only test it, and once it's checked, he will proceed to another subject. And in other cases, students will be supported more. And of course, we actually use those tools for these actually purposes. And of course, we develop other tools. Another question of mine. When studying, students
will find answers to their questions in some references, and that might be books or something else. And if a student is somewhere studying, and then the answer might be at the level of the first grade. So is there a chance that the business chat could check that? Well, the student might get an answer which could be too complicated for him, and generative AI tools work as follows. The answer will not have a very specific, very specialized set of answers, but as we've seen, something that will be very specific for this area. So if the set is more general, then if the question is formulated and prompted in a good way, then he will be able to actually get the simpler answer. Well, what I meant was, if I'm a student and have booked some credits, some subjects, and haven't studied the higher level or more advanced credits, well, you can configure it, of course. You might get the information, or it is the objective that the student will not be given the answer because it's too far advanced for the student. It's up to the setting of the chat, how you configure it to your needs. Another technical question of mine, the transcript of the videos, is it also being created by AI? Well, some time ago, it paid off to actually ask a student to do that, to provide the transcript. And now we use AI, of course, and it's this audio to text converter. That means that one tool will be able to actually convert it from video to text, and then we have another tool that will identify the code, because sometimes you need to transcribe the code so that the whole video transcript is processed, and then we get the output with which we can work well. Last thing I would like to ask, based on my experience, students sometimes suffer from insufficient planning, bad planning. But what if the students look for information in a chaotic way? They don't know where to get the information, the correct information. Can they use AI to support them? Well, I would ask a classmate. I would actually post my question on the chat, and I always use these things. If the school or the university has got those things described somewhere, whether the instructions are in a digital form, then we can use the data for the business chat. And if the student asks within the business chat and asks what he should do and how, then he will ask within the chat and can get helped out. Oh, that is great. Thank you. I would like to ask Jakub. I think digital education, digital learning within the university context is wonderful. However, we have said that the AI paradigm might actually distort the whole spectrum of the society. You think this can be transposed to the whole society, to the society as a whole? Difficult to say. Looking at education in general, we see that it is being digitized. However, the educational process is rather conservative, and 20, 30 years ago, we witnessed the internet revolution, and it is only now that we see a higher degree of online penetration in the educational area. So it takes some time to proliferate for these AI tools in education. However, where we could see it first will be where we want to make education more efficient and where star students will be more visible. Those will be students that need more support. And that could help that could help education as a whole. And everybody could get educated anytime due to digitization in education. Thank you. I think our time is up. I would like to thank Jakub Haláček for his inspiring presentation, and I would like to thank you to all speakers. I think they have covered ERP systems from various angles. And what would you say? What was the most beneficial knowledge you obtained? Today, we were speaking about ERP systems, but still heard a lot about AI. That means that the future for ERP systems depends on fast adaptation of innovation by AI, and we should help our users. And that was the key message by Gartner and Microsoft and SAS as well. And I think this is a very nice note. We have ended our conference. Let me say one more thing. AI produces outputs which are so difficult to be distinguished from the human activities, and very soon we will not be able to distinguish. And we have been here in person. It's not been our avatars, but who knows whether next time it will be different. I'd like to thank Martin for his assisting and posing questions and helping our speakers. Thank you. And I'd like to remind you of our need to receive your feedback. Please fill it out, because we will, of course, be trying to make it even better next time. And we will have fun, but it's very important that you have fun, so please give us your feedback. And it will be November 22nd, November 22nd, 2024. It's going to be the next conference, and we will be speaking about the hyping topics. Thank you. See you next time.